Hey everybody, Tony Cottaspati from GreatVocalMajority.com, website, YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about a little bit more about this whole thing with the recount and some of the things Trump said about it. Trump made an assertion that Hillary Clinton really didn't win the popular vote because she got a lot of votes that were illegal. And some people are, of course, it seems like everything that Trump says that sounds outrageous, and a lot of things he says are outrageous. People scoff at him and they make fun of him, but most of the time he's right. And I want to explain why I believe in this particular case he's right. He's right, and we can't get there directly with evidence, but we can kind of get there deductively, and I'll show you what I mean. If you look at the post I put up the other day that showed that Hillary Clinton has a 2.2 million popular vote lead on Trump, it really can be isolated to just two counties. Not forget about states. It can be isolated to two counties. Los Angeles County, where she has a margin, Hillary Clinton has a margin of 1.5 million votes in LA County alone. And I think about a 1.1 million vote, you have to go back and check my work, 1.1 million vote margin in Cook County in Chicago. Now, what do we know about particularly LA and California? Well, we do know that not long ago, I think it was maybe a year or so ago, Jerry Brown allowed for illegal aliens to get driver's licenses. Now, why is that important? Because you can register to vote when you have a driver's license. Bill Clinton signed the motor voter bill back 25 years ago. And because he signed that bill to make it easier for people to register, now he's making it easier for illegal aliens to register, which they are doing. Now, in this video, I'm going to splice in some news reports that back up what I'm saying. Okay? So that we know that illegal aliens are getting driver's licenses. We know that they're asked if they want to register to vote when they get those licenses. We know that Hillary Clinton won a gigantic margin of victory in LA County, where there are lots and lots of illegal aliens. I mean, this is the deduction I'm talking about. Now, Chicago, same thing. Same thing in Chicago. There are lots of illegal aliens in Chicago. And the same thing holds there. Now, I don't know for a fact if illegal aliens are allowed to get driver's licenses in Chicago. But it wouldn't surprise me if they registered to vote anyway. So I'm not so sure about Illinois as much. But those are the two places where there are lots of illegal aliens, and at least in one of those places, they can get driver's licenses and register to vote. And there are news reports about how they are registered to vote. And Chicago, Chicago. I mean, dead people vote in Chicago. So there's so much corruption in Chicago, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if illegal aliens are voting there in large numbers as well. And, thinking that it's okay because the government, it's not on the people. They're not doing anything that they think is necessarily wrong. They're looking at a document that says, do you want to register to vote? So they're doing it. Now here's the other thing. There were a couple of studies done. One, I think, was done by George Mason University and Old Dominion. And another one was done by a congressional research type service that's bipartisan. And what they discovered, and I also have a video from Fox News that explains this in part, that in 2008, over 1 million non-citizens, not necessarily illegal aliens, just, non-citizens like expatriates working here with green cards, they voted in our election in 2008. 1.2 million. Well, since that time, California passed the law with the motor voter law. So you would expect there to be more illegal aliens and non-citizens voting in 2016, which would more than account for the amazing difference, $2.2 million difference, 2.2 million vote difference between Clinton and Trump. So, bottom line, I think Trump's...
It could be very serious. It could change the whole complexion of an election.
2 election supervisors take action tonight after an NBC2 investigation uncovers flawed record-keeping and human error allowing people who are not citizens of the United States to vote.
NBC2 investigator Andy Parati has been working on this story now for more than 2 months.
He joins us live from the Lee County Election Center. Andy?
Well, Lindsay, we don't know how widespread this problem is because elections offices don't keep track of where non-citizens live. So we decided to do something that they never tried to do before, and we found them on our own. Have you voted before?
Right. I vote every year.
Hanako Danette is not a U.S. citizen, yet the Cape Coral resident is registered to vote. Do you know that you're not supposed to vote if you're not a U.S. citizen? NBC2 found Danette after reviewing her jury excusal form. She told the clerk of court she couldn't serve because she wasn't a U.S. citizen. But we found her name and nearly 100 others like her in the database of Florida registered voters. You have no idea why you're registered to vote?
I have no idea. I mean, how am I supposed to know? Go driver's license facilities or anything. I don't know.
This Naples woman didn't want to show her face. While she doesn't know how she was registered, she does know how to vote. Records show she voted 6 times in elections dating back 11 years.
I know you cannot vote before you become a citizen, so I never tried to do anything like that.
Samuel Lincoln is not a U.S. citizen either. The Jamaican national says he doesn't know how he ended up registered to vote. So this is all a big mistake.
So that's their mistake, that's not mine.
But we obtained a copy of his 2007 voter registration application. It's clearly marked U.S. citizen.
And that is under oath, that document. They're attesting that it is in fact true. And by falsifying it, it's a 3rd-degree felony.
County supervisors of elections tell me they have no way to verify citizenship. Under the 1992 motor voter law, they're not required to ask for proof.
We have no policing authority. We don't have any way of bouncing that information off of any other database that would give us that information.
Does that need to change?
I think it needs to be looked at.
Until that happens, the only way supervisors of elections can investigate voter fraud is if they get a tip.
It looks like these individuals lied on your documents.
So that's what our list became. After showing them nearly 100 names we compiled, both elections offices sent letters to each voter asking them to verify citizenship.
It could be very serious. It could change the whole complexion of an election.
As you look live there, you can see the U.S. Capitol is getting a facelift, some construction ongoing, and there's always concern, as we are 5 days away from the midterm elections, about possible voter fraud. There have been confirmed cases. In fact, there's a new study out by Old Dominion University, and it says this about illegal immigrants voting. Quote, the adjusted estimate represents our best guess at the portion of non-citizens who voted. They look back at 2008. The adjusted estimate of 6.4% for 2008 is quite substantial and would be associated with 1.2 million non-citizen votes cast in 2008. There have been a number of different allegations around the country, but 1.2 million votes, they say, cast in 2008 from non-citizens. We're back with the panel. George, there are people who are very concerned about this around the country. How big a deal is this?
Well, 1.2 million is a lot of votes, considering we had a presidential election turn on 547 Florida votes, and the 60th vote in the Senate to pass Obamacare came from Al Franken in Minnesota, who won a disputed recount by 312 votes. So these matter. Now, the Attorney General says voter fraud doesn't exist, but then his employer says there's not a smidgen of corruption in the IRS, so we have to take this with a grain of salt. The Attorney General says that voter ID laws that exist in 30 states have a disparate impact on whites and blacks, whereas in fact the number of whites and blacks, the percentage of whites and blacks is almost identical that do not have photo IDs. Catherine Engelbrecht, whose group True the Vote was one of the principal targets of the IRS and the FBI and OTF and all kinds of people harassing them, found 6.9 million people doubly registered in 28 states that they looked at. So these are fairly substantial numbers. That doesn't translate into comparable size voter fraud, but the potential is certainly there.
Yeah, you hear about it, Mara. You know that there is a law, National Voter Registration Act, passed in 1993. It requires that states remove from their registration list ineligible voters, those who have died or moved away. And there's this book, Obama's Enforcer, about Eric Holder's Justice Department that says the Attorney General has refused to enforce this statute. I guess when you hear this and you get pushback about how big a deal is it, and then you see some of these stats and these studies.
Yeah, look, if voter fraud is occurring, it's a real problem and it should be prevented.
You say, does the story hang? Does it make sense? Does it seem to, without prejudice, does it seem to make sense given the facts that you do have? And in this case, I think it does. I really do. I honestly do think it does. So Hillary Clinton won the election on the popular vote by 2.2 million, but it does seem, because of where those differences came from, that a lot of people who are not citizens, whether here legally or illegally, account for the difference. Because part of these studies, by the way, showed that the people who do vote illegally vote Democrat 80% of the time. So that pretty much seals it. Now, you're going to hear from liberals that Media Matters and some other hack sites have completely discredited these studies and these reports. Not true. It's not true. It's typical Media Matters. They just throwing stuff against the wall and they're saying, yeah, that's no good. That study here, we have somebody over here. Here's a college professor says it can't possibly be true. I mean, it's true. That's it for me. Take care. I'll see you later.